All right, today I am going to show you how I make my bread by hand. It is a yeast bread, it's not a sourdough. That's something I don't always do. Sometimes a yeast bread is just more convenient. So I'm gonna show you my process, and that way you can see it in action and not just read about it. I noticed when I was writing the blog post that words sometimes don't completely communicate, and a video would help. So that's what we're doing today. The first thing you're gonna need is a little kitchen scale. I do not use measuring cups and for bread, because you really want your measurements to be precise. You're gonna get it and put it on grams, and then as you measure, you're gonna be zeroing it out. That's the tare function. So I'm gonna put the bowl on and use the tare function. Zero that puppy out. There we go. Now we're gonna start with 350 grams of bread flour. You can use all-purpose. If that is the only thing standing between you and homemade bread, use all-purpose. It doesn't make that big of a difference. Bread flour is better, but again, don't let only having all-purpose be the thing standing in your way. And before I tear that out, so that's at 350, I'm gonna go ahead and measure my yeast. And I want that up to 8 grams, so it's gonna go up to 358. There we go. That's about 2 teaspoons if you want to reach for a teaspoon. And then we add our sugar. I use brown sugar. Just gives it a little more flavor, because you don't want sandwich bread that you're not gonna eat because it doesn't have enough flavor. And this is where I kind of gauge. If I'm not going for real sweet, I do about 20 grams. If I'm going really sweet, I do 40, maybe 50 if I'm feeling feisty. 30, 34, 35. Yeah, that's good. And from here, I'm gonna kind of mix this in so that it's all even before I add any liquids or salt in. And I use instant yeast. That's why I can just add it straight into my flour and not have to bloom it first. I don't want that extra step. If I'm gonna deal with an extra step, I would just as soon be making sourdough bread. So for my yeast bread, I like it convenient and simple. So there we go. I'm gonna zero that out. I'm gonna add my olive oil, 20 grams of this. There we go. I'm gonna do my salt. I want probably 6 grams of this. Get that up to 26. Before I tear it out. There we go. And that way you just avoid getting more dishes dirty. And now it's just time for the water. So 230 grams. All right. That was 234, but it's probably okay. At this point, I don't need this anymore. I can put that away. And then we're just stirring this until it reaches a certain point that I just feel like I need to get my hand involved to get the rest of that work done. That's pretty much the point where I feel like my hand needs to get in there. Because you may not actually need more liquid, it may just need a little bit of working. So before you reach for more liquid, get your hand involved. See if you can get it to incorporate. See there, that's incorporated really good. We didn't need more liquid. We just needed to use our hand for a little bit. So I'm gonna cover this and let it rest for 15 to 20 minutes before I start kneading it. All right, so it's been 20 minutes. I just washed my hands, so I've got kind of a wet hand here. A lot of times I just start kneading it a little bit with that wet hand until it kind of starts to stick to me. And that's when I turn it out on a floured surface. So I'm gonna get probably about that much flour. I just kind of, I'm not picky about how much goes where, because once I get this out on the surface, I'm just gonna kind of roll it around and kind of coat it. And then I'm gonna start kneading. And that's just turn, pull towards you, fold it over, and then push, turn, pull, push, like that. And already pretty quickly it starts getting kind of stretchy and elastic and starts forming a bread dough, not just a mass. And there, you can kind of see it's starting to get dry. It's starting to stick to my hand a little bit. Might roll it in some of that flour. I really try to do no more than that first little spoonful of flour, because you want to avoid adding more flour in at this point. But honestly, I do not need my bread for very long. It doesn't seem like it needs it. Oh my goodness, that stuck to me. And from there, I try to shape it into a ball, poke it. I'm wishing that had a little more kneading, but that's going to need some flour, at least on my hands, to try to keep that from sticking. I may have to give in and add more flour to it. I'm trying to be. Okay, that, of course, the day I decide to do a video is the day that the dough doesn't cooperate with me. Honestly, sometimes I think bread dough smells fear. It's like a cat. Oh, you want me to cooperate with you today? How about not? Okay, that's starting to feel good. That's getting like smooth and elastic. I see how it's starting to hold that shape better. I'll poke it with my thumb. I see, can you see it very well? Let me see here. I'll bring it up to you. And poke it with my thumb. And you see how it springs back, but it doesn't completely spring back. That's what I usually look for. So that is gonna go back in here. We're gonna cover it and we're gonna let it rise for an hour. It's been an hour and the dough has doubled in size. That's what you're looking for. If your house is warmer than mine, it might take a shorter amount of time. If your house is colder, it may take longer. That is okay. You want it doubled in size like this. So all I'm gonna do is I'm gonna turn it out on this surface. I haven't cleaned it up since earlier, but that's okay. I don't actually want that flour. I just want the surface of the counter. Let's pull that out of there. And what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna get my hands like this under it and pull it toward me. And then I'm gonna move it and do that again. Move it, turn it, do that again. I didn't punch this down. It's okay, that's kind of taking care of it. All the things you forget to do after you turn on a video. And now it's about the tension I want, so I'm gonna not turn it and I'm just gonna pull it toward me and do that a couple of times to kind of create that loaf shape. You see that? And now I'm gonna put that in my loaf pan. This is greased. I used lard that I rendered. You can use olive oil, you can use butter, but you do want your loaf pan greased. Just lift that and plop it in there like that. This is not gonna be a super pretty loaf this time, but it will still do really well. And we're gonna cover it again and let that rise for 30 to 35 minutes. All right, so it's been 20 minutes and this is what it looks like right now. So this is not actually ready to go in the oven. What I'm gonna do though is it takes my oven about 10-15 minutes to come up to temperature, is I'm gonna go ahead and set my temperature and get my oven preheating. That way the oven's ready to go when this puppy starts rising above the surface there. All right, it's not been quite 35 minutes total, but my oven is up to temperature. And you see how this is just starting to get above the top of my bread pan, just starting to. You can let it go a little bit more than that, but much more than like an inch or so above, and that would be a little overproofed. So it'll pop up a little bit more when I put it in the oven. So I'm gonna go ahead and stick this in. All right, there she is. We'll say bye-bye for 35 minutes. All right, it has been 35 minutes. She is golden brown. She is ready to come out. And your last step is to turn your loaf on a cooling rack so that it can cool off before you're ready to eat it. And unfortunately, no matter how good it smells, it really is best to let it wait an hour before you cut into this, because you don't want the crumb to get gummy. I'm sorry. All right, and because this loaf that I just made is actually a Christmas gift for somebody, I'm gonna show you the loaf that I made a few days ago. So this is what it'll look like on the inside. And then you can just take and cut you a slice. Butter, jam, this thing's awesome. I decided on some blueberry jam. Yum. All right, I hope this video was helpful, that it gave you some pointers, some tips, maybe the courage to try making homemade bread yourself by hand. I know it intimidated me for years. I procrastinated so long about making bread myself. But now that I know how to do it, I'm just like, everybody should do this. So let me know in the comments below if you try this, because I would love to hear how it turns out for you. Bye.